Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my guest tonight, Dr. Esposito, a professor from the Department of Communication and Media Studies. He's a professor of such classes as public speaking, interpersonal communication, and intercultural communication. Dr. Esposito, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Chris, for having me.
So, since it's your first time being on our show, let's talk a little bit about what brought you to Edinboro, sort of the road to Edinboro for you.
I have both a bachelor's degree and a master's degree from the University of Akron, Chris, and I was a teaching assistant at the University of Akron, and then I had gone on for my PhD at Bowling Green State University. So I had 5 years of teaching experience, and then my first teaching job after my PhD was at Fayetteville State University, which is an historically black university. I taught there for 2 years before I came to Edinboro, and I've been at Edinboro now. This is the beginning of my 15th year.
Okay. Now, what attracted you to Edinboro campus? Because it can't be the weather.
That's true.
You know,
That's
the
very
snow
true.
amounts
That's
that we
very
get.
True. I've oftentimes liked Bowling Green was a small little rural town, which I particularly like. And I've often enjoyed being in a town that's small in nature and that is a college town. So I like the ideal nature of Edinboro. You're certainly true about the weather, but I like the atmosphere in this particular town.
Okay. Now, earlier you said that you were from Youngstown, Ohio.
Youngstown, Ohio.
Any connection to Youngstown and Edinboro? Any similarities? Or?
It's funny you bring that up, Chris. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but Youngstown usually has the highest murder capital in the particular country. So I would say they are very dissimilar. But I would say growing up there were similar values, almost the 1950 values that I feel here that are evident sometimes here at Edinboro myself in the community.
Now, for you on a personal level, what do you enjoy about being a professor? What makes it all worthwhile when it's snowing outside and you have to get up in the morning and drive here? What makes it worthwhile for you? What do you enjoy?
I was sharing this with my students earlier, Chris. 75% of students, this was a study in the New York Times, 75% of individuals working, or students included, dislike what they do, and I'm not one of those individuals. I really enjoy coming to work every day. My dad was a factory worker, so this job that I'm doing right now is they pay me to do something I enjoy doing, and it's almost like I have to pinch myself on a daily basis that they're paying me to do something. They pay me to think and read, and that's what I particularly enjoy doing myself.
Well, we're very fortunate to have you. Your classes are excellent. And it brings us to my next question. I want to talk about Bruce Springsteen. Because you created a class, it was the lyrics of Bruce Springsteen, correct? Tell us a little bit about what went into creating such a class. How do you relate the lyrics of Bruce Springsteen and bring that into a classroom and teach students in the 21st century?
It's funny you mentioned that, Chris. I did my master's thesis at the University of Akron on the music of Bruce Springsteen. I've always been a big fan of Bruce Springsteen. Coming from a working class environment such as Youngstown, I thought his particular music resonated with me. So when I wanted to construct a class, it's difficult in some instances because you're talking about an individual that most people your age, you said you know him, most people your age don't know who he is. So you want to kind of construct a class in such a way that you look at his lyrics through his albums and talk about how he spoke about working class culture. So in the class I would bring people in like Eminem and Kid Rock and Jay-Z and those individuals to show that what Springsteen was doing was he was writing about place and community and class, which we hear quite evident in these particular artists. Now,
Springsteen is what they call a heartland rocker, much like a John Mellencamp, Bob Seger.
Correct.
Why just focus on Springsteen? Why not the whole genre? Why single just Springsteen
Because Springsteen seems to be an iconic figure, almost like a Woody Guthrie, and he seemed to write about New Jersey where other people were saying they didn't want to be from New Jersey. The song New York, New York by Frank Sinatra. Sinatra's originally from New Jersey. And Springsteen felt very proud to be from New Jersey. And I felt that his particular music has spoken quite a bit about working class people more than any of the other artists. If you look at someone like a Johnny Cash, Springsteen was similar to that. He was writing about not only a Caucasian working class people, but he was looking at all working class people in general, which certainly is something that I wanted to look at in the particular class.
I remember reading somewhere about Born to Run, the song, that it was actually about leaving New Jersey. And it was ironic, Springsteen thought, because New Jersey made it one of the unofficial songs of the state or something along those lines. What do you think that album did to the face of rock and roll?
I think if you look at that particular album, 1975, Springsteen was still seen as an individual that really hadn't produced anything. I think Born to Run, Anthony DeCurtis said this. He said it was the last album written about whites living in the city. And it's a very interesting album because it talked about this place of Asbury Park, New Jersey, where most people wanted to move away from it. Springsteen wrote about it, and I think if you look at bands that have come after Springsteen, a modern day band that gives a tremendous amount of credit to Springsteen is the Killers and their particular music. And I think Springsteen has had a definite effect on popular music of people writing about place. I think if you look at some of the lyrics of Eminem, they're very similar to some of Springsteen's lyrics. Maybe not so much the swear words in there, but I think the characters are there that you see throughout these. And from Jay-Z to Mary J. Blige, you hear the characters being displayed there. And I think Springsteen was one of the first artists to write about working class people.
So he kind of set the standard and then others followed after him.
I believe he did. I believe he did.
Now, Born the Run came out, and then he had The River, and he finally got acclaim, had a top 10, correct, I'm trying to think of the single from The River, Hungry Heart.
Hungry Heart.
When he came out with 1984, or not 1984, but Born in the USA in 1984, a lot of people think that he took more of a pop sound and not necessarily sold out to pop, but he kind of strayed from his roots that he had in Born the Run, and then Born in the USA.
Right.
What do you think of that? How do you think he sold out, or do you think
I think it was more of a pop album. I think if you listen to the lyrics of the album, even Dancing in the Dark has a very dark tone to it, but it's set kind of in a majestic way that the interpersonal communication is talked about like it's happy when it's said. I think even the song Born in the USA, which is about a Vietnam War veteran that comes back home, but I think that helped him gain a tremendous amount of esteem with the pop community, but I think he lost some of his credibility with some of his fans. The album that he had after this is an album called Tunnel of Love, which was about the breaking up of his particular marriage, which people feel that's one of his better albums. But I would say that Born in the USA helped catapult Springsteen to superstar status.
Right.
And it's interesting if you look at it, it's the first time he was able to finally make money as an artist.
So, who else do you think belongs in the Bruce Springsteen atmosphere as an artist? Lyrically wise and just being an all-around musician, being able to craft albums such as Born the Run.
I would say if you look at some of the, I don't know if you're asking Chris for like the older, or certainly Bob Dylan.
We'll focus more on like classic rock, not necessarily
Johnny Cash, but I would say, you know, to give Dr. Peyronel, he's a big fan of Tom Petty.
Yes.
I would say Tom Petty. And some of the music that John Mellencamp has been doing lately, he's been going back to a Woody Guthrie type of sound. I really particularly like the music that he's been producing. He doesn't have the hits like Jack and Diane anymore, but I think his music goes more to that Dust Bowl refugee of people like Woody Guthrie and Arlo Guthrie in that particular standpoint.
Yeah, that's what I love about the classic rock music. If you get the right musician, they really talk about something that you can connect with.
Right.
And do you think that's what rock and roll should be? Should it be where you can connect with the music, or should there be songs sort of like a Van Halen Jump, great musicians, but there's really no connection with a pop-sounding song?
It's interesting, Chris. My daughter is a big fan of Lady Gaga.
Okay.
And I don't know if I particularly like her. I guess I respect her, but to me, her music is more, Madonna's was the same, it's more about the beat of the music. You don't hear that much.
Just kind of dancing and being part with it rather than connecting with it.
And an album that I really like right now, I think Adele's album is excellent. That particular album that's out right now really talks about interpersonal relationships, but I think that it depends upon what you particularly like. I think there's some wonderful music out today. I think people from my generation aren't open to hear some of the wonderful music that's out today.
Last question about Springsteen is, what's your favorite song by him, by the boss?
I would say my favorite song by Springsteen is a song called The Promised Land.
Okay.
I particularly like by him.
And what album's that from?
That's from Darkness on the Edge of Time.
Okay, so that's before Born in the USA.
Yes. Yeah, that would be, yes.
Okay, so that's before he kind of got more pop-ish.
Correct.
All right, and just to kind of close up, you are also the advisor for Lama Paeta.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what this does for journalism students and what they can benefit?
Yes, Lama Paeta is an honors group for communication majors. They have to have at least a 3.2 grade point average in their major and a 3.0 average in their overall classes. And it's a group that we try to do some research. A couple of my students just presented a panel at Westminster College on the documentary More Than a Game. It's about LeBron James' basketball team in high school. We focus in on that. We're working on some research. We've gone to various universities. We've gone to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a group.
Cool.
And we're continuing to try to do some different things around campus to get our name more viably known. But I think it's a wonderful organization, and we hope that you come along with us soon, Chris.
I hope to. Hopefully next semester, next year, I will be a part of it.
Wonderful.
And Dr. Esposito, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much,
having
Chris.
a Bruce Springsteen fan here on the show. And ladies and gentlemen, that does it for this week's show. And we'll be back next week. And until then, have a great night and even better tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.